We went there kubook. Okay. We're not going there for theater or anything. Okay. But everything changed in less than 5 minutes. From the moment alipelekwa theater, the only thing I was told ni the operation was successful. You can go and see your wife and mtoto. Yeah. Tukaongea na bibi yangu na nikamwambia utakuwa sawa. And that's why up to date I always feel I failed her because nilimpromise atakuwa sawa. Kaniambia tu, we are sorry. You have lost your wife. She's gone. It took me like 5 minutes to realize I'm still kwa hii dunia. Because the news, it was dark everywhere. Dark, completely dark.
Some stories are hard to tell and even harder to listen to. And on today's episode of My Story, we bring you a story of one Joseph Wanyonyi who recently lost his wife after he took her to a facility to give birth. And out of what is alleged carelessness and negligence, he's now a widower and a single dad. No justice, no closure, no answers yet. My name is Njeri Masi, and let's listen in. Hi.
Hey.
How are you?
It's okay, but yeah.
Yes, we understand. Yeah. I'm happy to finally see you. Of course, for someone who does not know your story, go out there kwa mtandao, and it has sparked some discussion. But here we are here to have a lengthy conversation to understand where all this started and where we are at now, and even how the family is doing. So even before we get into the conversation, looking at this camera, you can introduce yourself so that people can know who you are.
Okay. Thank you so much. My name is Joseph Wanyonyi, husband to Phyllis Wanjiru, my late wife. Tumekuwa na Phyllis for a very long time. We've been together for over 10 years. We loved each other. For you to stay together for over 10 years,
yes,
it's not just something easy. There must be love in between for you guys to stay together for that long. Until her last breath, we were together. So, me and Phyllis, tumeendesha maisha pamoja, ups and downs. And that's why, hadi wakati wake wa mwisho, I was the only person around her that moment, trying to save her life. But in doing so, I failed to save her. But also, I tried.
You tried. Yeah. And the good thing is that you are there, even when she needed you the most.
Yeah.
Take us through that day. I know there was the pregnancy journey and people embraced it. Was it a problematic one? Did she have any difficulties?
My wife, the day she announced to me that she was pregnant, of course we had to joke about the pregnancy. We joked. I remember that night, akaniambia, baby, nimetoka hospitali na nimeambiwa niko na ball. Ilikuwa after festive season. It was early January or February. And before that announcement, we used to work together in town sometimes, but after tumerealize ako pregnant, nilimwambia sasa wewe kaa nyumbani. It's time sasa uanze kutunza mtoto. It was so early. Hajakuwa mtu wa kufanya kazi wakati after ameniambia ako pregnant. So I stopped her from going to town. Mekuwa akikaa hapa kwa nyumba, kushughulikia watoto wengine, kupika, kufua. Vitu mingi, ni mtu anapenda kazi. That's what I can say. Then on Tuesday, now last week, 9th, my wife tuliamka asubuhi, nikatoka nikapeleka mtoto shule, mdogo huwa anapelekwa shule waende mwenyewe, and then nikarudi nikapata ashajipanga tunafaa tuende clinic. And before alikuwa ameniambia anafaa aone gynecologist gyna on Wednesday, which was 10th. So it's good we go there on 9th. We book for maternity ward and gyna appointment. And I was like, ni sawa, are you ready? Yeah, tungoje rafiki yake afike. Rafiki yake afika, tukapanda mlima hapa juu tukienda. I called an Uber after nimefika pale juu, tukaingia Uber tukaenda St. Teresa where she did her last 2 maternity clinic, because previously alikuwa anaenda Kiambaa Ekatano. There's a church maternity clinic ya mothers. So there they don't have nini mambo ya CS na nini, so we had to refer her baadaye siku za mwisho pali penye atazalia. And niye mwenye alichagua akasema I want St. Teresa. My wife alikuwa amerate St. Teresa sana. That one I can tell everyone. After tumefika St. Teresa, after tumechukua Uber, tulianza the normal procedure. Tukaenda kwa ofisi ya clinic. There was a nurse there. Akatutuma kwa records. Lazima ufunguliwe like file. Sasa ile report unaenda nini kubook and bookings. Tukatumwa kulipa. I remember my wife nilikuwa nimemtumia pesa ya kulipa clinic mapema sana. It was if I'm not wrong early, it was tarehe 2 or tarehe 1. Wakati niliona tu niko na pesa kwa account nikamtumia. Nilikuwa nisham add kwa my medical cover. So ilikuwa active. So akalipa hiyo cash yenye walikuwa wamedemand because it's private, and also tukapeana ID number ya my medical cover ikaekwa, tukapewa receipt and we went back to the records, then tukapanda bado to the nurse office. So mimi I was told to wait outside and the friend kwa bench, but I could see what is happening inside. I saw Dr. Mwaura alikuja. By that time sikuwa najua ndio Dr. Mwaura. And akaingia kwa that nurse office, akachukua file ya my wife kwa meza, akaiangalia, akapitia through, and then my wife left. Akaniambia tunaenda theater. That is barely 30 minutes tangu tuingie after arriving. Nikamuuliza nini imechange. Akaniambia nimeambiwa tunaenda theater. Akapandishwa juu upstairs with the nurse, wakaenda and then wakarudi na wakaingia kwa ofisi.
Okay. Before waingia kwa ofisi umetuambia there's something I want people to get clear the details. Ndo atoke ile hosi ya Kiambaa akuje St. Teresa. Alikuwa anakuja juu St. Teresa ndo ina offer CS services. Also when she was going to St. Teresa she knew she was going to give birth.
You have to consult first wakwambie their service and nini. And because your friend has told you huko kunafanywa you go there and ask. So akamwambia inafanyika. Akafanya first clinic and second clinic. So alikuwa anajua. And because she has had a previous CS, it was obvious. The next step was CS.
Okay. And this time yenye umeenda on Tuesday, alikuwa anafaa kuona gyna on Wednesday.
On Wednesday, next day now.
So hata hakuaende theater.
Hakuaende theater because she was not in pain. We're just going to book for a ward kwenye atalala, ndio hata gyna asichelewe. Nini vitu mingi. You see, it wasn't about giving birth.
No, we understand.
We went there kubook. We're not going there for theater or anything. But everything changed in less than 5 minutes. The time alitoka nje akasema nimeambiwa naenda theater, na akapanda stairs akaenda na nurse, kurudi akaingia kwa ofisi. And Dr. Mwaura was still inside. Then wakatoka wote. Dr. Mwaura and the nurse who was there. Wakatuambia tuendeni tuonyeshe kwenye ward yake iko. Anaenda saizi theater. Now you see I'm not a doctor, singe question and so tukaenda juu. Her room is upstairs. She was walking. Hiyo stairs anapanda vizuri. Tukaenda tukaonyeshwa ward yake na wakamchukua wakamwambia you guys go wait outside, we'll update you. So we went and waited. hours passed. From 11, mid, 1, 2, like 3 hours we were called. And we were told the operation was successful. You can now go, the operation is successful, the mother is okay, the baby is okay. Now you are allowed to go and see them. Na tukaambiwa, because we knew the ward, tukaenda. Tukapata, yes, my wife was okay, the baby was okay. Akaniuliza, umeona mtoto? Nikamwambia, yeah. We started again joking about who is going to name the baby. Vitu vya kawaida. So and she said nitamname after my mother because her mother is late. Then mi pia nikaambia namname Evelyn, like the short form. And I remember akiniambia then mtoto atakuwa na 2 names, 2 English names. And then the last name ikuwe bado ya mama yake. So we joke for some time. Tukikaa tunaye tukimwangalia. I remember at some point complain anasikia pain kwa tumbo. Tumsaidia kumgeuza and we called the nurse. Wakamsaidia kumgeuza. But nikauliza daktari, hiyo nurse alikuwa hapo, ako sawa? Akasema it's normal. After any knee operation lazima mtu asikie uchungu. So because the doctor has told you ako sawa, it's a normal knee. Yeah, you believe. He's the doctor, she's the doctor. So you listen to them. You don't listen to what you don't know. Yeah. Tukakaa naye for hadi around 9, not 9, 7
PM mama yetu.
Yeah, 7 PM jioni. Now ame give birth huko saa 8, saa 9, saa 10 hadi jioni tu kinini. Akaniambia mtoto Abigail alichukuliwa na jirani kwa shule. Huyo mwenye nilipeleka asubuhi. Because you see sikupata chance ya kwenda kumchukua because huyo alipelekwa theater direct. So ende uangalie mtoto na uangalie watoto sapa na nini wapange. And then ndio nirudi nimwangalie. I left, nikatoka nje nikaona matunda, kibanda matunda. Nikaona wacha ninunue matunda kwanza because walikuwa wanasema ataruhusiwa kukula around saa 2. Nikanunua matunda. I remember banana ya 50, watermelon ile kubwa ya 50 na apple. I think I took 3 apple. In fact tulirudi nazo hapa. I ate them because nikapeleka kwa ward hizo matunda. Before nifike kwa ward nikaambiwa pana saa hizo ukipeleka anaweza jitemta kule, so wacha hapa kwa ofisi. Nikawacha kwa ofisi. Then nikaambia babe, mimi nimeenda, nitarudi acha niangalie watoto. I left, nikakuja kwa nyumba nikawapanga sapa. Nikachukua mtoto kwa jirani, nikamjoin na wengine. And after watoto wanataka kuanza kula, now it's around 9. When I called my wife at around 9, nilikuwa nasikia kishake kwa vile anaongea. You can hear someone akishake. And akaniambia, babe, nimesikia madaktari wakiongea. Wanataka kunifanyia referral to Kenyatta. Naogopa, please kuja uniangalia. So I just picked my jacket na nikatoka mbio. Nikapata bike hapa. Nikimbiza mpaka Center. So less than 5 minutes nilikuwa nishafika. Vile nilifika niliambiwa siruhusiwi kuingia. I wait outside kwa reception.
Na wakakwambia reason ni nini?
No one told me the reason. Now this was a person at the reception. Maybe she didn't know actually what was
happening instead.
It's just instruction, mwambia aruhusiwi kuingia. I waited outside. Hours, maybe minutes. Then ambulance ilikuja. Nika reverse kwa mlango because reception is just close to the door. Ambulance kufika, wakatoa hiyo gari ya wagonjwa wakashukisha, wakaingia nayo ndani. No one is telling me anything. After few minutes again wakarudi na hiyo gari ya wagonjwa. Sasa now with my wife nikaamka kwenye nilikuwa nimekaa. Nikarash, nikawasaidia kumweka juu ya ambulance because now nilikuwa panicked because I don't know anything. No one has told me anything. I'm just in the dark.
So this whole time, even when you're watching them take your wife, still they have not
No one
briefed you?
has told me anything. Not even all this time. From the moment alipelekwa theater, the only thing I was told ni operation was successful, you can go and see your wife and mtoto. Yeah. To when I called my wife about KNH. So nikawasaidia kukunja hiyo nini because of panic. Najaribu kusaidia nini ina happen because I see it's my wife. Chani nisaidie vile atapanda kwa ambulance. Akaingizwa ndani. I was actually going to enter, nikaambiwa you go sit at the front. And then I had someone saying wanangojea mtu. So again we waited for like 30 minutes. Kwa ambulance just at the front.
Na say that ambulances are for emergency.
I don't know what was happening because I'm sure there is a CCTV for that. Walizunguka hapo for those minutes. And then later the driver akakuja mbele with the co-driver. Akachukua simu yake na akaweka wimbo Mungu enda nasi. And we started the journey. Now the journey to Kenyatta. Remember, I'm the only one know that tunaenda Kenyatta because my wife I communicate. And this is after tumeongea naye kwa simu.
Akakwambia amesikia.
The hospital has not told me where we are going. But because mimi ni mtu mkubwa, I know ambulance is emergency. And pia my wife ameniambia ni Kenyatta. I knew something was wrong. That's why I was trying to assist. Nilisikiza hiyo wimbo tukienda. Nikisikiza hiyo wimbo machozi ilianza kunitoka. I don't know why I was crying. Because of the music. I mean because of what was going to happen next. I just felt emotional.
And you knew something was wrong somewhere.
No one noticed I was crying. Tukafika Ngong Road. They started deliberating on whether they should take my wife to KNH or Nairobi hospital. And then I remember the driver said, because already tumepigia mtu wa Kenyatta, we just proceed to Kenyatta. The nurses at the back, I didn't know how many people are at the back because mimi niliachwa mbele kwa gari. Nikapata kuna 2 nurses at the back, wakatoa bibi yangu, wakamsukuma, wakamshukisha. Mimi nikachukua mtoto kwa mkono, nikashuka na yeye, nikawafuata tukiingia. What I know, they were confused, the nurses. We started asking, where is labor ward? Now we are asking, labor ward iko wapi? Tukadirectiwa, tukaulizwa maswali. Labor ward kwa nini? Kama ni mtu wa less than 24 hours ndio anapelekwa labor ward. And wakaambiwa yes, it's less than 24 hours. Tukaonyeshwa kwenye labor ward iko, tukakimbia. Tukifuata signs, tukafika labor ward. Ukiingia labor ward wakamwacha hapo kwa mlango, entrance ya labor ward. They left my wife, mimi niko na mtoto kwa mkono. A doctor from KNH akapia just from nowhere akasema, na huyu mgonjwa anakaa vibaya, mbona mmemwacha hapo kwa mlango? So when he said anakaa vibaya, I felt like I had to do something. Because a statement like that from a doctor lazima tu unafikiria vibaya. So nikiwa na mtoto tu nikabidi tu nimesukuma bibi yangu kumpeleka kwenye madaktari wako huko mbele because he was directing. So I felt lazima kuna mahali nafanya saidi because the nurses are confused. They don't know what to do. Wako tu hapo, they're so confused. Nikasukuma bibi yangu hadi huko mbele. Now the nurses followed me. Kufika huko mbele nikaambiwa nirudi nyuma. Chaos zikaanza between St. Teresa and KNH. They started shouting at each other. I remember a statement wakisema, you guys are greedy. Huyu msichana mmemfanyia nini? This is a curse. There was fracas there.
Was the wife talking the whole time?
She wasn't talking. Alikuwa anajaribu tu kujigeuza kwa hiyo gari ya wagonjwa. And I was told to go and start process ya Kenyatta sasa. So I left. Nikaenda hapo nje nikapewa direction what to do. Nikaenda kwa cashier because now you see my medical cover was active here at Ranini St. Teresa. And at Kenyatta it's inactive. It doesn't operate. So I went outside kwa cashier nikapata kumefungwa, but there was a sign ya kuonyesha where you can go and pay. It is outside. I went nikaulizia nikalipa. In fact niliomba watu waniachie line nilipe because mtu wangu anakufa. Nikatoka na receipt nikarudi. So nikapeana receipt nikaenda kuangalia, nikaingia tena labor ward. Nikaambiwa now Kenyatta wakanibrief, wakaniambia your wife ampoteza damu mingi sana. And verbally wakasema tu ampoteza like 4 liters of blood. And 4 liters of blood for a human being, it's not a joke. But we are going to try. We have like 5 here. We're going to try and stabilize her, and then we will call you. So you go outside and pray. I'm still with the baby all this time. I was confused and I told our nurses was interested. I begged them wachukue tu mtoto waende naye because now things are getting in. Because at that moment someone was calling the nurses kuambia ambulance itawaacha kujeni, si tunaenda. You see? So I had to beg them waende na mtoto because chakula mtoto ni wa masaa tu, anafaa kula after every 2 hours and I don't know where to start. So I begged them and then tuna mtoto. Like I had to risk whatever the case. Because there is CCTV, nilikuwa na mtoto kwa mkono, even if they wanted to do something bad, ilikuwa na some cover. And they left for real because of the pressure yenye walikuwa wanapewa huko nje. And one of the nurses actually said, aliuliza, mnatoanga damu usiku because I'm O negative if blood is the problem. And that actually today ndio nimepata to my another question. If that nurse was O negative and she was offering to donate blood for my wife at KNH, why couldn't she do the same hapa St. Teresa? Why did they operate on my wife without blood? You see, na walikuwa na mtu ako na blood type yake. They started looking after mambo imeharibika. So they left with my baby with my permission. That one I know I did. Nilipatia permission. In fact, I'm the one that begged them waende naye. That one I know. I'm accountable for that. So they left me there. Wakaenda na mtoto, which I'm grateful because mtoto nilimpata akiwa sawa. Now I was outside praying. I remember nilikaa kwa floor, nikainama, nikaanza kuomba Mungu. That's around 1 a.m. in the morning. I prayed 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. It took hours before niitwe na daktari. So the doctor came, kaniambia, you are Phyllis' husband? I'm the one. So your wife ameamka, now you can go and see her. I went there. My wife alikuwa anaongea, now ameamka, anaweza atageuka. And now KNH doctors walikuja wengi sana, like 3, 4, 5. Tuko surround hiyo nini. Wakaanza kunibrief, wakaniambia, bibi yako ampoteza damu mingi, but we have managed to stabilize her. But yako na bleeding internal yenye bado inaendelea. And we need to find the cause. And for this, we suspect, our main suspicion ya case inaweza kuwa ni uterus ilifungwa vibaya ikabaki kibleed. And if that is going to be the case, we'll have to remove the uterus. And wakatuliza watoto tuko nao wangapi, and we said 4. And I remember my wife akiambia daktari, if the uterus is the problem and that is the only thing inaweza fanya nirudi sawa, you have my permission. And I second the opinion. Nikaambia iko sawa, we are going to sign and everything. And wakaleta hiyo consent form. But I was told there was a freezer hii ya kuweka damu ya blue ilikuwa kwa meza hapo. we're told kuna damu moja peke yake imebaki hapo, and your wife has to go back to theater, and we don't think this blood is enough, but we have made calls to ask for blood. So I was told to sign consent. Tukaongea na bibi yangu na nikamwambia utakuwa sawa, and that's why up to date I always feel I failed her, because nilimpromise atakuwa sawa when she was going to theater, because after theater I never saw my wife until wakati alienda ICU. And I'd promised her. Now she was going to theater for the second time. I felt the pain because I knew my wife from morning tutoke hapa kwa nyumba hakuwa amekula. It's now 1 AM next day. Bibi yangu bado tu ni kuchinjwa na chinjwa, operation after operation. I cried nikiomba. It took hours, hadi almost asubuhi kabisa, sasa kumekucha. I was cold because the entire night sikuwa naona mtu yote mwenye najua. All the 4-5 doctors wenye walikuwa around my wife, sikuona hata mmoja hiyo usiku yote. In the morning I was cold and I was told we managed to stop the bleeding, but because of lack of blood we took your wife to ICU or RDU, there is a name, for life support as we wait for blood. When I was told that, and the doctor said continue praying, na akaenda. The second time I was called, I was told wewe ndio Phyllis husband, come I show you where your wife is, uko ICU nikupeleke. While walking there was another nurse that came, akaambia huyu atakupeleka because nilikuwa hata nafunga shift, huyu ataenda kuonyesha kwenye your wife is kwa ICU. The lady akaingia ndani akaniambia wait outside niulize kama unaweza ingia kumuona. Akaingia na immediately akarudi. Akaniambia wameniambia kuna kitu anamfanyia, so you'll have to wait kwa there is a doctor's office opposite ICU. Nikaonyeshwa, nikaingia, nikakaa. Barely 5 minutes the owner of the office, the doctor now where I was sitting, akaingia na akaniuliza who I was, and I explained myself who I was. Akasema mgonjwa wako tunamshughulikia, and then he left. Barely 5 minutes again akarudi akaniambia we were expecting blood because your wife's life inazidi kuwa ngumu, start mobilizing for blood. I remember nilichukua simu nikapost on my page Twitter requesting for blood. Then after sending the post, daktari akatoka, alitoka na vitu za madaktari zilikuwa alitoka kwa shelf, akatoka akarudi kwa ICU. When people started calling about blood donation, the doctor came back less than 5 minutes. Akarudi na akaniuliza how far with the blood. It's barely 5 minutes. Ameniuliza nitafute damu, and then barely 5 minutes aniuliza how far, and akaniambia iko urgent. Your wife's heart imefail, so try. I wrote the second post. Nikasema it's urgent. There's a guy who called me akaniambia hata amefika town. I told him tujaribu tu harakisha hata kama atafikaje. Can't remember his name. But when the doctor came, now less than even 5 minutes, aliniambia tu I remember niuliza what is your name again, and then akaniambia tu we are sorry, we have lost your wife, she's gone. Meona giza. My brain went black. I couldn't see even a single person. I was just in another world. It took me like 5 minutes to realize I'm still kwa hii dunia, because the news, it was dark everywhere, dark, completely dark. The more memories started flowing, I'm sorry. I started seeing my wife's memories kwa kichwa, and it was dark, ni kama tulikuwa dunia ingine. And when I realized bado niko, niliuliza kama naweza enda kumwona. I was told yes. When I got in, my wife was still breathing. I remember I called the doctors. Nikamwambia bibi yangu bado anapumua, kujeni muangalie. Like she's not dead. Because nilimlalia kwa kifua nikasikia bado anapumua. And the doctor told me, ndugu, hiyo unasikia kwa kifua ni machines zinafanya kazi. Your wife is gone. I couldn't believe she's gone. Tumekaa naye miaka 10 na zaidi. She's gone and gone. My world was shattered that morning. I failed to save my wife. I tried the entire night. Few minutes haikupita. Now I was outside, nimetolewa huko. Niko hapo nje. Nikaona gari ya kubeba maiti ikiletwa. It was covered in black. And my head told me, imeenda kuchukua bibi yako. I cried. Wakaingia na wakatoka naye. There's a very, very long tunnel from ICU. I don't know where it's heading. Walisukuma bibi yangu kwa hiyo tunnel. From where they started to the end, nikiangalia, the tunnel was long. The corridor was long. Until vile wali disappear. And that was the end of my world. And that's why I'm so furious with Saint Teresa. I'm not going to curse, but Saint Teresa, that one I said, and I will repeat again, and I can confident. You see, if nilipeleka bibi yangu angejipeleka Saint Teresa, hiyo ingekuwa another case, because sikukuwa hapo. But because nilipeleka bibi yangu from asubuhi tukitoka kwa hii boma to asubuhi ya mchana next day wakati alipass, I was there. I never left Kenyatta. I never left my wife. So I know when people see, I want people to understand me. When I say I know Saint Teresa killed my wife, and I can say on record, Dr. Mwaura, Moses Mwaura, I don't know if he's a doctor, a qualified doctor, Dr. Mwaura, it's on record everywhere. I can say any day, Dr. Mwaura killed my wife. That guy is a murderer, a complete murderer. It's not about negligence. He's just a murderer who has money and also arrogant. And I said, and I will say again, it was horrific, mostly at Kenyatta. That night was long. It was the longest night of my life. And that's another reason why I will make sure, no matter how money Dr. Mwaura has, the facility they have to pay. Someone needs to lose their license.
And to be accountable.
That is the point.
Yes. So the whole time you had left your kids, who was taking care of them?
They were alone at night.
And at what point will we go for baby from the hospital?
It was now after I've come down kidogo. I had so many friends. What I can say is I'm so thankful that most people know me as who I am. They know how bad I am and they know how good I am. And at that moment I knew I wasn't a bad person. Because if you ask me, from when my wife passed, I don't know how the people who handled everything at KNH. From where she was taken to follow up, the paperwork, the discharge, I wasn't involved. I just gave them my ID and my wife's ID to start the process. And that is when I realized it's not about family. It's about the people around you, the strangers around you. Those people that you think are strangers, they are most precious people in your life. Because me, I saw it. They stood by me. In the evening, that is when I was told, now we are not sure about St. Teresa. You need to think about the baby. Because that hospital has bad reputation. They can exchange your baby because of the case. And we left immediately to Kakuja St. Teresa. We arrived here at around 5. And we demanded to see Dr. Maura because I knew Dr. Maura by face. Tukaambiwa Dr. Maura ako somewhere else anafanya operation. So he is not present at the moment. We waited for almost 5 hours because we demanded we want to see the management and also for discharge of my baby. So he came around 9 and then we called for meeting. Tukakaa kwa meeting. Dr. Maura alikuja, management ikakuja, wakajiintroduce, and then I started asking questions. I asked Dr. Maura and the management, why did you take my wife to theater without blood? Because for sure I was there. You see, if I wasn't around, mungesema alikuwa in pain and we had to take her to. And maybe if she had someone else mwenye anaweza kuwa bribed, pia angekubali hiyo story.
Good thing you were there.
Yeah, but because I was there and I'm the husband, the lover, the person mwenye nimeishi naye miaka mingi, hakuna vile mtaniambia bibi yangu alikuwa in pain. Hii mlima si ya mtu wa mimba mwenye ako na pain anaweza panda. Lazima gari mchukue hapa. So telling me anything, I want you guys to be honest, mnipatie majibu. And I remember Dr. Maura told me, the reason why hawakuwa na backup blood is because he thought my wife wasn't going to bleed. That is what doctor. He calls himself a doctor. So that is a statement from a doctor.
And he was thinking.
He was thinking my wife wasn't going to bleed. Now it got heated up, and because my focus was on the baby, niliwaambia tu mnifanyie discharge ya mtoto na mnipatie hizo records. So we started na mtoto, hizo notification, wakaniuliza jina ya mtoto and nikawapatia jina ya bibi yangu because now my wife is gone. I wanted to see someone around. So I called my daughter her mother, her mom's name. And because wamama walikuwa wamekuwa, kuna watu walikuwa wamekuja kuleta zawadi ya bibi kuzaa. Because wakati alizaa tuliambiwa ako sawa, so walikuwa wameanza ku make calls ya watu wameanza kuleta gifts. So after kusikia maneno, kesho yake wameleta gifts nini, kufika hapo wakakasirika. So because of that nikasema acha nitoe mtoto mimi niende nyumbani, niache wale watu walikuwa wananisaidia Kenyatta wafuatilie documents. Hapo ndo St. Teresa walianza kuonyesha their true colors. Now Dr. Maura walianza kuandika new reports. My people wenye niliacha hapo, they started calling me, wanasema watu wameanza kuandika reports mingi because for a patient to go to theater lazima kuna report. Now why are you writing a new report? Because kila patient akona record yake.
You want to change something.
Yeah. So they started, and that is when niliingia Twitter nikasema let me try my luck. Maybe my wife atapata justice. Maybe hakuna msichana mwingine wa Kiambu atakufia hapo. Maybe my daughter akiwa mkubwa hakuna mtu atamchinja tu kama kuku ama anything. You see? So I started and nikasema I am ready to go to jail. I'm ready for anyone to do anything to me, but I will put it on record. Dr. Mwaura is a murderer. And this one, nashanga mbona KMPDC, they're not saying anything. They're talking of investigation. What is investigation? When mtu amefungiwa hospitali mara ya kwanza, kumekuwa na so many cases ziko all over. They have the files. It's not a coincidence that kila wakati ni hospitali yako tu inaua watu. And this time I was there. Kama wale wengine wa mabwana zao wako pale, mimi I was there. And that's why niko so confident nikisema Dr. Mwaura aliua bibi yangu. And I have so many questions. Why they never explained to me mbona wameachana mambo ya Gaina, which was supposed to happen on Wednesday, wame move to theater direct. Emergency theater. To someone mwenye hakuwa na pain. What if atungeenda huko on Tuesday? Was my wife going to die? Because hakuwa in any pain. We just said wacha turn to book things in advance. But now see, nyinyi mmefika no explanation why she's going to theater. You lied, you had blood for backup, but then later you said hamkuwa na damu and you thought she wasn't going to bleed. And I'm not suing only Dr. Mwaura. I'm suing the entire facility.
Yes.
Because wote walikuwa careless, from the ambulance guys, from the nurses wenye waliniacha Kenyatta, to the securities wenye walinizuia nisiende nione bibi yangu ya usiku, to the reception people, to the records guy mwenye alificha my wife's records, naambiwa hawakupewa hata scan.
Hata sasa bado wamekatalia.
Scan za maternity walikatalia. But I believe kama bado kuna system inawaki Kenya, no one should be able to cook a scan ya maternity. So if that is the case, that our system is still working, I want to believe mtu hata cook hizo scan, because scan iko na jina, iko na time and all that.
Na dates.
And dates, yeah. So if Dr. Mwaura is so powerful, yes, he can do that. But I will never rest. I will never rest. Mimi damu yangu ni ya wasichana. Watoto wangu wengi ni wasichana. I will never rest for the sake of my daughters.
Yeah.
Because if today I'm grieving, at 50 nikianza kulia wakati msichana wangu, mtoto wangu amefanyiwa kitu the same, I will die. I will die for sure. If at 70 msichana wangu afanyiwe the same na daktari similar na Dr. Mwaura, I will die.
Yeah.
Right now maybe because I'm still young, I want to take care of the kids. Niko na small energy. I will make sure nimefightia watoto. And Dr. Mwaura lazima kuwe answerable.
Yes.
His name, I know iko na legal implications, but ninapeana jina yake full. Dr. Moses Mwaura of St. Teresa Kikuyu Nursing Home is a murderer. If he's going to take me anywhere, courts, nini, kama kuna system ina work, Dr. Mwaura anafaa akuwe wa kwanza kushikwa, not me. Because I know his face. I know how arrogant. Dr. Mwaura aliamka kwa meeting, akasimama, akatoka, akatuacha kwa meeting ni kama yeye ndiye ameuiwa bibi.
Ulikuwa kwa meeting ask questions?
Tulikuwa kwa meeting kuuliza questions. The entire management ya St. Teresa. And because Dr. Mwaura ni mtu chest thumping, aliamka na akaenda. He's so arrogant. Maybe because anajua kuna watu wanamprotect. That's why ako so arrogant.
Yeah.
Anaongea akiangalia chini, like he doesn't care. That's what I can say. Dr. Mwaura doesn't care. Ni kama kitu amezoea. And yesterday tukitoka postmortem, ule pathologist wake without shame ananionyesha organs za bibi yangu. The internal organs. Like who said kuna organs imepotea? Why have you started showing me organs kwa simu, the photos? Am I even allowed to see such?
You didn't even accuse them of taking your wife's organs to start with.
Like wameanza kuwa suspicious wenyewe. Because mi sijaulizia mtu, sijasema kidney imepotea, sijasema lungs zimepotea, heart na nini. But wewe tuko postmortem report briefing, unanionyesha organs za tumbo ya bibi yangu. Are they trying to cover up something? You see? I don't want to bring assumptions, but why? Why do you have to show me? Hata walimkemea wakamwambia, this is not something ya kuonyesha mtu ana nini. Kama angekuwa anataka angeingia kwa room tufanye na hiyo postmortem. Why are you showing him? So those people are not straight. And I know Dr. Mwaura ameua watu wengi. After what I saw and what I witnessed without any information, bibi yangu angepelekwa Kenyatta bila mimi kuambiwa. Kama singempigia simu, asubuhi ningepigiwa simu niambie bibi yangu amekufa, because I know kama ningerudi huko hiyo time nilikuwa nirudi saa 4. Ningepata shatolewa huko na ningeambiwa tu saa hizi hautaruhusiwa kwa arrest. And then asubuhi ndio niambiwe bibi yako alikufa.
Na ungejua kwa.
Na singejua wapi alipelekwa saa ngapi. Wange cover up everything. But this time round damu ameguza ni damu mbaya. And that's why nilikuwa hapo from the beginning. I think my wife's blood iliniambia nifate. Lazima watu wajulikane na ikue ya mwisho. Wasiwe watu vile wanaua kiunyama and then they just act like they don't care. The facility is still operational. And that facility is big, but there are no people inside. That day we had like 2 mothers, actually 1. She was inside. But outside wanaimarket vizuri sana. Wanaleta watu kutokujua. Watu wengi wanaingia pale innocently. Bila kujua what's happening inside. It's so clean, so clean. Wezi hata ukiguza kidole hivi unaweza lamba. Hakuna uchafu huko ndani. But sasa uchafu yao yote ni humanity. They don't have humanity. They are not doctors. Those guys are not doctors. And if they are, and KMPDC wanajua Dr. Mwaura ni doctor, then walimpatia fake certificate. That one I'm open to say it. Because there is no way muna revoke license then mnarudisha. Then cases zinakuja then muna revoke tena.
So like his license was revoked.
It was revoked. It was in the news, NTV, 2019, 2012. It's been there. So it's someone who is connected. Dr. Mwaura is connected. That one I'm sure of. But I think this time round I will try my best. I will fight for my daughters and I will fight for my wife. My wife never cried. That one I'm not going to say. Hakulia hata kidogo. Alikuwa tu anatoa machozi because hata hakuwa na sauti ya kutoa. Ulikuwa unaona tu machozi yanatoka. That's the painful part. So Dr. Mwaura was an Teresa.
He should be held accountable.
Yeah. Aseme yeye ni nani. You see?
If
he's the son to the president atuambie. If he's a deputy president atuambie ni deputy president ako untouchable. If yeye ndio mkubwa wa madaktari atuambie I'm the chairman, I'm the CEO of the board of management ya madoctors. Atuambie tu kweli, mimi ndio naandika kila kitu. Hiyo vitu mnaleta huku KMPDC ni mimi nitaenda kusign, so you are doing nothing. That is what I want Dr. Mwaura kama upambie wa Kenya. Awambia hata mulete kesi 100 ni mimi ndio signatory person. So msijisumbue. We want to know that. Because the way it's looking ni kama yeye ndio huyo. Yeye ndio chairman, yeye ndio senior. Because if that wasn't the case, saizi angekuwa ameambiwa you transfer the patients. The facility should remain closed until investigation is done. But sasa yeye anajaribu ku play games vile ata cover up, and because anajua kuna so many people or he's the so many people, then ako tu sawa. No one is going to shut down the facility. And they are risking more lives, you see. And there are so many cases of people complaining.
After you posted your
After I posted, I was shocked. Mbona hivi tu yote hatukujua? Ndio imetokea tu so many. They in the news. Unajua kitu ya news ni the good thing about news ni ati hata ukireport 50 years ago, hiyo kesi ikirudi tena itapatikana tu. So they are there. Ziko kwa media. You see? And it's the same doctor mwenye anaingia YouTube anaambia watu we offer this, anafanya marketing. You see? So si ati ni kitu mgeni. I saw so many cases and I was shocked. Hapo ndio I was saying I wish I knew. Kenyatta was better. But I was told because they are doctors, anything can happen.
No.
he will try to cover himself na watu wake wote, but mimi I will try my best
and we pray that this time he does not succeed. Pray for Rach that picture when you took baby without the mom and now you are coming back home to meet the rest. Na ujua tutawa explain aje.
But I can't talk about it because it was hard. Do you know when I was at Sentesa, now we are trying to nini hiyo mambo ya clear my child, my daughter. I was called by my kids hapa and they told me wanataka kusalimia mom. Now actually niliuliza Dr. Mwaura the same thing. My kids wamenipigia simu wanataka kusalimia mama yao. If it's you, nataka unipatie majibu, niwaambie nini? He started kustammer because he knew sasa where. Utaambia watoto wanataka kusalimia mama. Wamepiga simu, yes. How? I had to lie, niwaambie mtaongea na mmenyu baadaye, saa hizi bado wako bed rest. But tunakuja na mtoto, mtaona katoto kazuri. Then I came kwa nyumba. And I remember my other daughter mwenye ni mgonjwa saa hizi akisema naka katoto ni kadogo kana kasupu. And I was like, yeah, she doesn't know anything. She doesn't. You see, even if I'm going to tell my kids that I'm a grown up, I know how brains work. So even if I'm going to tell my daughter mama amekufa, it's a kukufa. She's not going to cry, by the way. She's not. Kukufa, it's a kukufa. To her, it's a kukufa. So she doesn't understand much about kukufa. Itafika time yenye sasa wamegrow ndio anze kuona mama hakuna. So right now about kids, I know
they don't understand
don't understand anything. Like not even much. They don't understand anything. Because even if niwaita meeting hapa niambie it has passed 6 days now, they're just okay. They don't know anything. Wanafurahia mtoto mdogo. And actually this small daughter anapenda sana mtoto kumshika usiku nini. And even myself nimeshindwa kulala, siwezi hata kuweka kichwa hivi chini bila kushikilia watoto wangu, you see. So it's hard on my side, but I have to be strong. You see, the moment I start getting sad mbele yao, that is where shida yote itatokea, you see. So I am trying to cover myself. Even yesterday nikiwa KNH after postmortem, nilianza kusikia vibaya, nikashindwa hata kutembea. I even suspected maybe nimekuwa drugged. The next thing I knew niliamka nikiwa kwa nyumba hapa saa 2 usiku. So I was told you fainted, ulifika kama uko nini. So and before ni faint, nikiwa nimetoka kwa morgue, niliwaambia mkifika nyumba msinipeleke kwa watoto, make sure mmecover nikuje to direct huku chini, wasi notice anything. You see, I was trying to cover because at this time watoto wakianza ku grieve and I'm also grieving, I believe kulingana na ile akili yangu niko nayo kidogo, itakuwa disaster emotionally, nitakuwa drained. So what I can say about kids ni that they are innocent. Even if they knew anything before, I easy make any change. And I will protect that. I'll make sure they stay innocent until the right time. Yenye mtu ana understand what is death. Yes. Someone has gone forever, he can't come back. And I saw so many people asking me, my online friends. By the way, everything here that is happening here, it mostly is done by my online friends, and wameniambia nikuwe strong, and I will promise them after yesterday the postmortem result, I'm going to be strong. I'm not going to cry. You'll never see me cry again. I'm going to push. Dr. Mwaura ni mwanaume kama mimi. We're going to rub shoulders. I know he has power, he has money. I know my life is at risk. That one I'm sure. Because the way he's talking, you see, you can just hear vile mtu anaongea na unajua tu mtu anaweza fanya anything because now yeye pia ako kwa desperate situation to save hospitali zake
na his image.
Yeah, and his image. So I am expecting anything, and niliomba watu wa Twitter, me only operating on Twitter. Kila kitu I run on Twitter, my business nini. Niliwaomba in case of anything inifanyikie, they should just take care of the kids. That one I'm sure they can. Twitter they can handle my kids, and I'm sure walikuja hapa, we had a meeting, so I know them, I can count on them. So as unaona tumekaa naye hapa, kesho unaweza sikia I'm gone. That one I'm sure, and I'll be happy to join my wife pali yako, because I know right now she's feeling cold somewhere. Yeah. So I'm happy and ready to face any consequence. That one I can tell for free. Wakitaka watoke na mimi, but at least I have tried. Nimeenda maandamano huko. I've tried my part, and I know I'm fighting a very huge battle that it's beyond me, but I'm human. Dr. Mwaura is also human, so I believe if we are both human, we run by luck. You see, luck yangu inaweza overrun his, you see. So maybe anaweza kuwa ameplan kunitoa kwa picture and then God afanye mambo yake, you see, because mimi sina uwezo. Mimi uwezo wangu kubwa ni online. Najua they will fight with me, watanishikilia mkono, na hata nikitolewa leo niambie, wa announce you guys will be here maybe tomorrow, Friday, any day that I will die, you'll be here and you'll document, na wataiona, and wakiona they will seek justice for me and now for my wife, and they will take care of my babies. So that one you guys need to be prepared that anything can go wrong or right. It's right on my side. If I die today, I will face my wife and I will explain, but it's wrong for my kids because nitakuwa nimewacha nyuma, but still at the same time nitakuwa nimeachia watu wenye najua I trust them. I trust strangers more than my family. That one I can say on camera.
Why?
Because I know where I come from where I lost my job, from where I've struggled with my wife. It's only strangers who came through. You see where I am right now, I'm like home. This is not my home. Hapa niko rental. They have given me everything. Nyumba za wageni, huko tent and everything. You see? But me, I know strangers, what I feel the pain. Mothers, fathers when I die and all that, you see. So just expect, you can be called anytime ambiwe Joseph is dead.
Shindwe.
And unclear. No, it's good for me, you see. You see, as I speak now, after what happened yesterday, you see me, my friends here told me it was because of njaa. You see, I've not eaten for like 5 days. But myself, I know, I felt like something was wrong when I started feeling dizzy, because after all paperwork, postmortem, and then nashindwa tu kutembea, miguu zikaganda, mikono zikaganda, and I told them usinipeleke hospitali because maybe someone is trying to cover up. Ni rush for emergency and then waende wanimalizie huko ndani. So I said mnrush nyumbani na muambiwa niweke maziwa ikuwe ready.
So you are afraid, you feel like your life is in danger.
Yeah, that's exactly. Because anything can happen. And you see, when someone is after you, there's nothing you can do. You see? So you just have to wait. That's what I can say. So if it is death, we are all waiting for death. That's what I can say. You see, my wife is gone. Nimemwona mara 5 sasa akiwa amekufa. Yesterday nilishika kichwa yake. She was so cold. So cold, and I knew that is death. So nilifeel death kutoka kwa hiyo baridi nilikuwa nasikia kwake. And the fact that nimefeel death, I'm waiting for it. So if someone is powerful and ready to finish me, that is what they should expect. They should know that mtu tunaenda kukuta yeye pia ametungoja, ako tayari kukufa, so amewafanyia kazi yenye kuwe rahisi. You see, because as much as kuna hiyo criminal law like hiyo process ya kufuata ya law na nini, that one is okay. We are governed by the rule of law, you see. And as much as we are governed by the rule of law, where there is law lazima kukuwe na mtu amefanya makosa. So my death pia inaweza kuwa makosa, you see. So we will follow the law kufuatilia hii case, but I know when things get thick kwa side yao waone wameshindwa kila mahali, because mimi everything I say iko hapa recorded, si ati ni kitu iko on tape. The horrific ordeal nilipitia hiyo usiku haitawahi toka kwa kichwa yangu, haitawahi toka, sitadanganya, haitawahi toka. So I know the only way ya kutoa hiyo kitu iko kwa kichwa yangu is by finishing me off, and that when I'm ready, and I will plead for Kenyans, mostly Kenyans on Twitter, they know me, walikuja hapa tukakaa kwa meeting. When I'm gone, they should make sure, wanajua Abi so active, they should make sure Abi ako active, ako sawa, anasoma. Anthony the same. Catherine and Phil is now my last born. My wife now. Phil is now, she is now my wife. Because Mimi, my plan is to follow my wife if anything goes right or wrong, you see.
Don't say that. How has your routine changed since now you're the one who is taking care of the young one? I'm a parent for a very long time, not qualified, but you see, a qualified parent ni ule mzazi anajua kulea mtoto. So parenting is not a problem to me. Nothing is going to change if they are going to give me chance to continue living. And I'm not begging for chance to live. That one wasichukulie ni kama I'm begging them to give me chance to live. It's my right to live. But you see, we are humans. Someone can decide we toka mbele yangu, you see. So if by God's grace nitaendelea kuishi, my kids will be fine. Hakuna kitu ita change. I saw the kids from school where my daughter is studying. Jana walikuja over 100. My son's side walikuwa wamekuja over 50 the other day. I wasn't around yesterday, so when I got here it was a bit I didn't know when even I got here. So school itaendelea, parenting itaendelea, discipline itaendelea. I'm a parent, they know me. And I had juzi wakisema wakati walikuwa na watoto wao wa shule that we have the best dad in the world. So everything will continue. Mimi ni mzazi, nitawa discipline, nitawa treat vizuri vile tulikuwa naendelea. My wife knows because tumeishi hapa for long. So for you to see people giving me their compound, you see right now kama ningekuwa kwa apartment ingekuwa other things. So my kids wako na full support ya mimi, so as long as I live, najua wako na my full support. I'm a hustler. Mimi ni mtu nafanya vibarua. I have to work after all this. And during work kuna mtoto huwa anapelekwa shule asubuhi mapema, and kuna huyu mdogo, so already tumeanza plans to get someone mwenye atakuwa anani assist even if it's from 6 to at least 10 p.m. So 10 p.m. anaweza toka aende, then I take over mtoto mdogo na wengine. So plans are in place. That is if I will be alive. I don't want to say sitaki mtu anifundishe kulea mtoto, because mtoto mdogo, I will tell you the truth, bibi yangu amenilea vibaya. Bibi yangu alikuwa kama mama yangu, you see. You see, married people know. By the time mmeoana, mmezaa watoto, mko pamoja, kuna vile wanawake wao wanatutreat vibaya. Ile like bwana hawezi pika, bwana hawezi fua nguo, aushi watoto. The only thing I used to do ni kupeleka watoto shule, and nimepost mara mingi kupeleka watoto shule, that is basic. But hizi vitu zingine mabibi wao wanatuambia hii si sekta yako. So I will confess, mimi mambo ya kupika sijui, mambo ya kufua sijui, a lot of things. And that's why naangalia mimi ni mtu hardworking. Nitaingia kwa street hapa Nairobi, nitatafuta pesa ya maid, nitatafuta pesa ya watoto ya shule, nitatafuta, nimekuwa nikitafuta. So ni kitu imekuwa ikihappen, so it's not going to stop. That one I'm sure. Okay.
I know how I work.
Okay.
And I'm so afraid right now. Sitaka mtu close to me to a point that mwenye anaweza niletea the similar pain that I'm feeling now. Naweza taka nikue life yangu ikue sasa it's me and my kids, because losing someone mwenye mmeishi naye kitanda moja nyumba moja for over 10 years, siwezi taka kitu kama hiyo happen tena. Siwezi taka mtu mwingine experience the same. Wacha nikuwe addicted kwa watoto, niwaongezee pamoja na ya mama yao, nichukue yote niweke kwao. That's the only nini naweza taka kwa sasa, because it's painful. It's still painful. But the reason why I will not cry again is because they are there, wako hapo, and
you want to be strong.
I have to be strong for them, you see. So expect calls.
Okay.
Anything can happen anytime.
We are hoping for positive, of course.
Yeah,
And,
of course.
I know there are people who are watching and they know how they can assist us. Maybe.
For now, I think I don't need assistance. It's gone overboard, because if someone was to offer assistance apart from my online friends, now relevant authorities, for a case like this that imepita 6 days, angekuwa amejitokeza. It's an obvious case. Mimi niko pale nimenarrate my story. It's there. Mbona must take action if it's a working system? So if there is someone mwenye anasema anaweza help, huyu ni mtu anangojea wakati kitu imeenda viral, imeescalate, ndio wanataka kuja sema I can help. So me, I don't need protection, if that's what you're saying. I don't need protection. What I need is if I'm going, let me go alone. You see, some people might be careless the way they were with my wife. And being careless, I mean wakuja watoke na watu wengine wengi, maybe my kids wanikujia usiku, watoke na mwingine mmoja pia, that I mean killing us. Hiyo ndio inaweza kuwa more painful. But if it's me who is the problem, then they should just come for me. But apart from that, me, what I want is someone to be held accountable. Okay. That's what I'm fighting for.
Okay.
This one I'm telling St. Teresa. If there's anything they're planning with my life, they should just make it soon. Wasingoje wakati nimetulia sana. Nataka saizi that I want to see my wife, we go chat up there. So if they are planning anything, just let them make it soon. I'm giving them permission. Let them make it soon. Yeah. Thank you so much, by the way, for coming. At least yesterday I was bad, yes. But your presence here imefanya nikakuwa a bit active. And I really appreciate you guys showing up here, and you are welcomed any day, because we know you'll be coming here for more and more that will happen. Yeah, because I am expecting. Mimi mtu mzima, so I know. I'm expecting a lot from these people. The kids are okay, the kids are healthy. I will not try. I'll make sure kuna maisha. Okay. You see, not wealthy life, but maisha is not about wealth. You see, kama hiyo siku nilikuwa Kenyatta, wanataka damu, I had a few cash with me. Did it help?
No.
So life is not about wealth. That one I know. It's just about taking care of your family and where you can assist them and support. Can you save? That's the most important thing in a joke life. And it's not because my wife amedai ndio nimejua. Something that I knew even kuanzia kitambo. That what matters is, can you save someone when they need the saving your time? Of course not. You don't have the power. The only thing you can do is just to try. Maybe by luck unaweza save. I will protect them, wasiingiane na wasipatwe na mambo. See, sitataka wajue kinaga ubaga sana ya ndani until wakuwa wakubwa. The right moment, that's what we say. Okay. So we will wait for the right moment.
Okay.
Ndio nikalisha watoto niambie, this is where your mother was buried. This is what happened. Dr. Mwaura killed our mother. You see, my wife was also my mother. So I will tell them the truth, and that one will never change. So if these guys will not act, even after 20 years after my kids wamegrow, nitawaambia Dr. Mwaura ni ule ndio aliua mama yenu. So he shouldn't expect anything to quit anytime soon. Ini kitu itaenda ages and ages. And this is if the authority ita act. But if they will act, Waitito ako prison. He was a governor. So who is Dr. Mwaura? You see?
You should be
Systems need to work. Systems need to work. You see? And also about blood. People need to be a bit serious about blood. Mimi wana donate. I remember when I post. Mimi wana donate KNH, but when I needed help. So there's no need mimi ni blood donor, and wakati nahitaji usaidizi no one can help me. You see? I'm a blood donor. You see? Nimedonate several kwa KNH. My record is there. Hakuna kitu kama ati walikuwa careful. That one I can say here on camera. Hakuna carefulness yenye walionyesha. They are doctors. How do you wait for 6 hours mtu apoteze hiyo damu yote ndio uanze crash after operation?
And even after they have not.
She was only on water support kwa huko St. Teresa. Hakuna nini ya damu alikuwa amekewa. It was only water. Amekewa chupa ya maji hapo juu. Because if they are going to say walikuwa wamekea damu, si damu ni kitu, damu, blood is red. There's no colorless blood. You see? So it was water. Ndio bibi yangu alikuwa na. And hiyo water alikuwa na bleed ndani, akiongezewa maji. Ndani akiongezewa maji. You see? So there's no any cover up in wanaweza sema they are going to cover up the story. That one I'm sure because I was there. I am there, the CCTVs are there. The minutes and times I arrived up at St. Teresa, they are there. Of course they will sema mtu alikuja akacheza na camera and all that. We know that and we expect that. Wakisema nilifika saa ngapi, they are there. The moment I called my wife, it's here on my phone. It was 10:09, around 9:10. It's here. So if any cover up watafanya, mimi my brain it's already updated, najua kila kitu iko kwa akili yangu. To who was there and who was not there. Niko nazo kwa akili. So whatever cover they'll try to do, mimi nitakuwa na update watu. I know where they're covered.
Sawa sawa.
And the first thing I would request is wa release hizo nini?
Footage.
Hizo scans za my wife. I don't know why wanazikatalia. They should tell Kenyans mbona wanakatalia hizo scans. Was it released? Watupatie. Those are my nini? My documents. You see? I am the next of kin. So they should release the documents wanilete. You see? Unless wako na kitu kingine wanataka kuchukua. You see? Because the documents, what are they going to do with? To temper, scan. You see? So hiyo nitawaambia walete. Waache hii mambo ndogo ndogo. If it's a case, watu twende nao kotini. Mimi nimemuita murderer over 100 times. Dr. Mwaura is a murderer. Anipeleke kotini. Let's start there. You see?
Ni sawa sawa. Yeah. So thank you even for giving us this opportunity to tell your story and even going into details, so now even someone who is watching understands why is Wanyonyi so bitter with this St. Teresa Hospital, and even at this point they have not even given you answers to give you closure, and we are hoping that nothing will go wrong, that even the system that you are saying they should work, they will work in your favor and they will work the way they're supposed to work, so that someone can be held accountable. Because whether it's negligence, whether it's carelessness, someone should be held accountable at the end of the day, because we have now a widower and kids without their mom, and that should not happen to anyone else. Ndio. So thank you so much, and our is to wish you all the best. Na venye umesema tutakuja tena, we will come to follow up for better and for good stories.
I hope it will be for better.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I hope to see you again.
And my condolences.
Thank you.
Yes. So guys, we are trying to call the accused, Dr. Mwaura of St. Teresa Hospital, so just to get his side of story and to know why he hasn't yet provided any closure to the family up to this point, and why are they even trying to write another report different from the one that Mr. Wanyonyi knew. We are fingers crossed that he will pick our call and he will give us answers at least. Oh, we are lucky. Clearly ashiki. So I'll keep on trying to call him, but I guess when he realizes it has high chances are he might not pick it up, but yeah, I will even leave him a message, so hoping he will answer us, and at least we get a closure for the family, because grieving without a closure, it's not easy, and someone is not even telling you what happened, they're not even sorry, and someone is there to be held accountable. So we are really hoping for the best. And to you, our viewer, thank you for sticking with us up to this point of today's episode. As usual, Wanyonyi's number will be on the screen and also on the pinned comment below. Kindly help us and help the family to fight for justice, and we're hoping that everything is going to work out in your favor. Until next time, my name is Njeri Mercy. Just keep it to go.